All right, folks, Jermaine Farrell in the house with the WFXR Sports Sit Down on WFXRTV.com. And it is my pleasure. I tell you, when you're in the broadcast business, you come across a lot of great people and they're doing great things. And this young lady is no exception. Back in the day, we worked together in Wichita Falls. I'm not going to say how far back, but it's back there. And she's awesome. I mean, she's worked at Root Sports Rocky Mountain, covering the Colorado Rockies. Spent some time at the MLB Network over the last few years, working with the LA Dodgers, broadcasting with them, and now back at the MLB Network right now. In fact, she's going to be hooking up with Christopher Russo in their High Heat show. Bringing the heat always, the baseball knowledge, the Queen of Diamonds, Alanna Rizzo. What's up, Riz?
How are you? It's very good to see you. Yeah, we don't have to talk about Wichita Falls, how long ago that was. It was a long time ago. We've both moved on, but yeah, that's where it all started for us, didn't it?
I tell you, it did, and I tell you, you were awesome there, and I knew you were off to do great things, and I'm not surprised where you are today. And first of all, it is an honor for me to really, talk to you. I mean, I know we only have a lot of time, but there's so much I want to jam in, so I'm gonna jam it all in. But I got to ask you, first of all, and I don't think I ever really asked you this, but where did your love for sports come from? Because I know back in high school, you were a track star, a cross-country runner in Colorado, Rocky Mountains, the thin air, but where all that sports knowledge come from?
Yeah, I think my family was a sports fan, particularly because of the Denver Broncos. I was born and raised in Colorado, and my dad was a big football fan, and my older brother, and that's kind of where we all settled with all of our differences and different things. But the Denver Broncos was always something that we could come together and unite on. So that's still the way that it is to this day. I mean, we're all spread out across the country from the East Coast to the West Coast and several in between, and the Broncos are kind of that common denominator. So that's kind of where it started for me. Denver Broncos, Colorado is very much a Broncos town. And then I started I've always been a sports fan, and then started covering it, and it's just grown from there.
Now, real quick with Denver, let's don't talk about the first 4 Super Bowls. We'll talk about the last 3.
Yeah.
Because I remember growing up, if you saw Denver in the Super Bowl, you knew it wasn't good. But, hey, I was pulling from hard against Green Bay. I just want you to know. And then they beat Atlanta. And then, obviously, they got 50, half 100, beating
The Panthers, yeah.
And the Carolina Panthers. That's neat stuff. So then, looking at more of your stuff, and I did some research on it, there's some stuff I really didn't know. I didn't know that you started off in business. You wanted to go into business versus broadcasting. What made you start that way and then switch?
Yeah, I didn't even know coming up. I didn't really even know broadcasting was a thing for women. And I knew that I was obviously always a sports fan, but I never thought about it as a viable career path. And I thought the best way to go into the world was to go into business. I think you can, use a business background for anything that you go into. And I was fortunate enough to have an internship with Pepsi-Cola while I was still at the University of Colorado my senior year. And then I was fortunate enough to be hired full-time. So I kind of went into the beverage industry right out of college. And then from the beverage industry, I went into the hospitality industry. And ultimately, it just wasn't something that I was fulfilled by. I kind of had an epiphany between Christmas and New Year's of 2001. And I said, if there was anything that I could do, what would it be? And I just really wanted to follow my passion of being in sports. So I went back to school, and not knowing anything about anything, went back to school and got a master's in journalism, and just kind of worked my way up, starting in Wichita Falls as my first on-air job for like a real television station where I wasn't interning. I was actually physically employed, and you went from there.
I got to tell you this, I remember, first of all, my wife loved you on the air in Wichita Falls. She talked about you back then and said, who's that Alanna Rizzo doing sports on the weekend? I said, that's Alanna. She loved your work. She still does. So just want to let you know that.
Thank you.
And there. And what was your funniest, if you had a funny memory from Wichita Falls? I mean, people ask me about my time in Wichita Falls. There are so many, I probably could do a book about it. What was your funniest or silliest memory there?
Yeah, there's a lot. And I was only there for 9 months, but there's a lot. When you're working in a small market and you're trying to figure out your way in the industry and you're really just trying to survive because you're making absolute peanuts, there's a couple of stories. I remember, obviously, in Texas and in small town USA, Texas, high school football is all the rage, right? We know that high school football in Texas is a religion. And I remember we used to do, you know, like the equivalent of Friday Night Lights, and we had this high school football show every Friday, and we were out on a remote, and I can't remember what high school we actually were physically parked at, but you know what it was like at KAUZ, Jermaine. We didn't have the most resources in the world, so they basically had to tow our live truck, tow it to the game, and it was basically there so we could go live, but we kind of joked that it was the dead truck because the dang thing didn't even run. It had to physically be towed to get there so we could go live and we could be remote at this particular football game. Another funny story is a woman that was the chief meteorologist there when you and I were both there, Megan Danahay. Now she's Megan Hodge because she's since been married. But Megan Danahay and I are still very, very close friends. She's one of my best friends in the entire world. And we met there when she was the chief meteorologist and I was just making my way in the sports world. And we had this amazing plan that we were going to go in and I was going to present to Kyle, our general manager at the time, that I really needed a raise because we were making peanuts. You know, I was making $15,800 a year back in 2005 or whatever it was, 2004, whatever it was. And, you know, was basically had to choose between eating or putting gas in the car to get to the station, right? So Megan and I came up with this amazing plan that I was going to go in there and ask for what I thought was a 6% raise, but needless to say, math was not our strong subject. She's into weather, I'm into sports, and I ended up asking for a 60% raise, not realizing that my math was completely off. Needless to say, they did not give me a 60% raise or a 6% raise. They basically gave me like a quarter an hour raise. So I was still basically starving to death and ended up luckily getting a job in Madison, Wisconsin shortly thereafter, and was able to move to Madison and make a living. So a lot of amazing fun memories of KAUZ, but those are probably two that stand out the most.
You know, you mentioned the towing of the live truck. That was for the old High Rider game. I remember that we had to tow the thing out there, and it was old. It was 3 on a tree. I mean, I think that van was circa 1970 or something like that. You know, like it looked like it rusted out in some spots. They had to put a trash can.
I wonder if they're still using it.
Oh, they moved on, I'm sure, from that. You mentioned you moved on to Madison, Wisconsin, but then you basically made it back home. You made it. And that's a pretty good leap to go from Madison. You're in a regional sports, root sports, covering the Colorado Rockies. And talk about that experience and how neat that was.
Yeah, first of all, you know, Madison was such a fun stop along the way. I was there for 3 years, covered the University of Wisconsin, the Badgers, an amazing, amazing college sports town, amazing people, really, really fun, genuinely awesome folks that I'm still good friends with today that I worked with at WISC there, the CBS affiliate. And then I got to go home, and that was, you know, the only out I had in my contract in Madison was to be able to go to Denver if an opportunity arose, and it did. And I was able to go back. At the time it was what were we? It was like Fox Sports Rocky Mountain at the time, and then it switched to Liberty Media, and then it was AT&T Sportsnet. Now it's DirecTV, or I don't even know what the heck it is now. But they, you know, it changed hands a lot. But to be able to go home, you know, born and raised in Colorado was a dream come true, and to be able to cover, you know, the Colorado Rockies and my alma mater, the University of Colorado, and to be able to cover the University of Denver Pioneers. And it was just a blessing, and to be able to go home. And I thought I was going to stay there forever. You know, I would have been happy to die as the Colorado Rockies sideline reporter, but then MLB Network came calling, and I wanted the opportunity to go national. So I went to MLB Network for 2 years, and then I missed being around baseball and being at the park. So when the Dodgers started a new network in 2014, they asked me if I wanted to be a part of it from the ground up, and I did. So I moved from New Jersey to Los Angeles, and I was there the last 7 seasons, and now I'm back on the East Coast.
You know, it's crazy. So, and this was so weird. So I'm working at a station out here, and I'm looking up, and I'm flipping around in the MLB Network, and I'm saying, Alanna Rizzo said MLB Network, and I thought that was so cool. I was like, oh yeah, I worked with her. She was awesome. And then another time I remember, you're covering a no-hitter, and I think my wife and I were out eating. You were covering a Dodgers no. I want to say it was either a Dodgers no-hitter or the opposing team's no-hitter. But anyway, they had it up. I think it was a Buffalo Wild Wings where we were, and I seen you up there, and either you duck and dodge some, and I'm sure there were a lot of times they're pouring water, they're doing the shaving cream. You have to be quick on your feet to do that.
Yeah, I got really good at being able to dodge the Gatorade shower without letting the player know it was coming. I got to the point, when you cover a team as successful as the Dodgers had been the last 8 years, you have a lot of post-game walk-off celebrations and celebrations for the post-game interviews. So I got pretty good at positioning myself to where I could ask a question and kind of see the Gatorade coming out of my peripheral vision without letting the player that I was interviewing know it was coming. Because obviously the fans love it, the players that are dumping the Gatorade love it, and I don't want to ruin that moment. But I also don't want to sit in my car going out of Dodger Stadium, sitting in LA traffic for an hour soaked in Gatorade. So the players have the opportunity to shower. I did not before I got home. So it was a lot of fun covering the Dodgers, obviously an unbelievably historic franchise and a lot of amazing moments to talk about. But yeah, you learn, although the no-hitters I covered, I wore the same pair of shoes for Josh Beckett's no-hitter when he no-hit the Phillies in Philadelphia. And then like 5 weeks later, Clayton Kershaw's no-hitter at home against the Rockies. I had those same shoes. So I kept those. And then I've had the fortune to cover 6 no-hitters in person. So I've been very lucky.
Can I ask you this, as far as the Dodgers are concerned? And by the way, that looks refreshing. I don't know what you just was drinking. Was it coffee?
It's cappuccino. I never drank coffee until the pandemic, and now I can't stop. So there you have it. I hated coffee. And then we were stuck in our house for 4 months.
Yes.
So I was like, I guess I'm a coffee drinker now.
Right. I heard you're big in vino, and I'll talk about that in a second. But
yes, I am.
You may have had a glass of wine.
It's too early. Well, it is 5:45 our time, but yeah, that's not yet.
How you covered the Dodgers, and I tell you, one thing is, and just to see them get so close and get so close. For you personally, I mean, how satisfying was it to see them finally get over the hump and win that thing last year?
Yeah, it was incredible. I mean, honestly, they should have won it in 2017, and I think we all know why they didn't. But I think 2018, I do believe they were outmatched. I thought Boston was the better team. And I think, it took 5 games to win the series, and the only game the Dodgers won, it took 18 innings. It was 7 hours and 26 minutes, I believe, and it was Max Muncy who hit finally a walk-off in the 18th inning, and it was brutal. One of the worst games I've ever covered. But having said that, being able to finally see them do it in a pandemic year was extra special. I feel we were robbed as a team reporter, a team employee, because we didn't have the same experience covering them on the field as we would have in a non-pandemic year. But to see what they had to go through just to be able to play baseball, let alone win a World Series championship, was incredibly impressive. And I know a lot of people that are not Dodgers fans want to say there's an asterisk by this World Series championship. I can assure you it was harder to win and have a season this year than it was in any prior year. You have no idea on the day-to-day what these guys had to go through, all of the major league players, not just the Dodgers, but what the players in the league and the union had to go through just to have a season. So to finally witness them taking it all, even though I was in a suite in tier 2 and not in tier 1, was amazing to see, and I'm so grateful that they were finally able to do it.
I'm gonna circle back. I have a few more baseball questions, but I'm gonna circle back. But there's something, and I talked to all the women broadcasters about this, and something. First of all, I'm a big fan of women in sports broadcasting and sports, and the thing that bothers me more than anything else is the treatment of women. I came across a tweet, this young sports broadcaster. She comes in, and there are guys, let's face it, there are guys that troll women in sports broadcasting, and they troll them, and they say they try to do the right thing, but at the end, they ask for a phone number, they ask for all this other stuff, which that is so impure to me. And I'm sure you've gotten your fair share of all the nonsense. I just couldn't imagine all the things that women go through. I mean, being a black man, I go through a lot of stuff in sports broadcasting, but nothing kind of like what women go through. And I'm not going to get into specifics, but then you're doing a great job, because here's the thing. A lot of these women rise above all that nonsense. And I just got to ask you, how tough is it for a woman to be in sports broadcasting, because you all go through so much nonsense that is so ridiculous?
I think it's very commonplace, unfortunately, to have keyboard warriors, right? These men that think they can say whatever they want to say because they have the keyboard and a computer screen as a buffer. And while they may think that it's harmless, we're people first, just as players are people first. When players are attacked on social media or what have you, that young man from Ohio State that I apologize, his name is escaping me right now, but the young African-American basketball player from Ohio State, when Ohio State lost to Oral Roberts, was absolutely being berated on social media, not just about the game, but about his skin color and his race and this, that, and the other thing. And these young men, first of all, they're kids. Second of all, they're people first. And the same thing goes when it comes to African Americans, as yourself in the media or in general in our society. And now what we're seeing with all of the violence against Asian Americans in our society. And this is something, unfortunately, that is nothing new. In sports, I have constantly been sent inappropriate messages, texts, social media messages from not only fans, but from people inside the organization. And I will say, I want to be very clear when I tell you this, because I think there has been some misinterpretation about why I left the Dodgers. I want to be very clear about this. I did not leave the Dodgers because of what I said about inappropriate behavior that has happened to me as an employee of the Dodgers. I wanted to make sure people knew that it happened, but that is not why I left the Dodgers. I left the Dodgers for the sole reason that it was time for me to move from the West Coast to the East Coast to put my family and my personal life ahead of my professional life for the first time in my life. My fiance lives on the East Coast. We need to be on the East Coast, and that is why I'm on the East Coast, and has nothing to do with the Dodgers organization. They were nothing but class, and they treated me with nothing but professionalism and respect.
Can I say something real quick?
Said,
I just want to say something real quick.
Incredibly important for people to know that it happens, and women get treated poorly all of the time by these folks. And it was important for me to speak out because as you know, I have a very strong personality. I can handle it, but there's a young woman in a clubhouse right now or in a locker room right now that maybe isn't quite adept to handling that type of situation. And I want her to know that I hear her and I believe her.
I wanted to say something real quick. Now, I did hear about all those rumors and all that. So I want to say in full disclosure, the reason why I asked you the question wasn't necessarily about that, unless you wanted to talk about it, because out of respect for you, because I don't want you to feel like it was a blindside question. But I just want to ask you about that because I've seen what was reported and I've seen what people have said, but I wasn't going to come out and say, hey, we hearing about this, because I'm not an I got you type of guy. So I want you to know in full disclosure.
I know that about you. Don't worry. I wouldn't have even taken the Zoom if I thought that. Don't worry about it. I got you. I know.
I got so much respect for you, and I get a lot of pride when I see your success because I knew your come up, and you knew how you came up, and to see all these women doing well, and to see full-time women just doing everything, running shows, play-by-play, announcers, being in the booth. I see what Melanie Newman did. She was play-by-play at the Salem Red Sox, and she's with the Orioles. So to see the hustle and just the effort, and the Debbie Downers, these knucklehead men. And the thing is that I've posted stuff where I said, look, guys, you got to stop that because it's not right, because these women do a great job. And there are a lot of haters. And so as far as I'm concerned, I'm a big fan of women in sports. I got y'all's back. Y'all like my sisters and all that. So, hey, you got big boy here. I got your back. And I will not tolerate the mistreatment of women, not only in sports broadcast, but women in general. Because you think about it, that's like your sister, that's your mom, that's your cousin, that's your niece. So the inappropriate stuff, when I see women, they tweet it out, say, well, these inappropriate things that men are doing is wrong, and they got to grow up and get out of that locker room mentality. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. I think it's so important for men in our industry to stick up for us as well. It's one thing as a woman to champion for another woman, but to see a man in our industry stand up and say, hey, this is incorrect, and I have her back, is, it goes a long way. And I mean, I got something on social just as recent as yesterday where somebody said the reason I left LA was because of more money, and that I'm not loyal. First of all, I'm making half of what I was making when I was in LA, and talk about loyalty. My family and my fiance, that's where my loyalty lies. So, but people act as if they know you and they can say whatever it is that they want to say because you're a public figure and they do not have to say it to your face. I would be hard pressed to find any of these men that would actually say these things to our faces if they weren't hiding behind a keyboard. So to have men like yourself stand up and have our back and say something publicly is important, because I've worked with a lot of amazing, amazing men in this industry. And, you know, most of the people, fortunately or unfortunately, that are in hiring positions are men. And I've been very, very blessed to have a lot of guys in this industry have my back. And that continues to be incredibly important as we move forward, because guess what? We're not going anywhere. So you better get used to us being around.
And I'm so proud of you. And like I said, I'm so proud of you, kid. I mean, I know look, you down in that coffee. You gonna got to get you another
It's
cup.
really good.
Gotta get the pot out of it.
It's really good.
Good stuff. So looking at the baseball season as a whole, we talk about the Dodgers are in there, and the baseball season starts tomorrow. It's crazy. The season, we feel like we just ended, but the season starts tomorrow. You know, for some of our viewers, I mean, you know, I'm a Yankee fan, so don't hold it against me. But other than the usual suspects, you know, the Yankees, the Dodgers, are there any teams you're looking out there and saying, okay, this is a team that could make a run and win the World Series?
Well, I think for the first time in the National League West, the Dodgers actually have some competition. If you look what the Padres did in the offseason, they kind of won the winter, right? I mean, you think about the people that they brought over, Yu Darvish from the Cubs and Caratini, who, you know, obviously caught Darvish in Chicago, is with San Diego right now. You have Austin Nola behind the plate in San Diego, not to mention they signed Fernando Tatis to a $12 million, 12-year, $325 million deal or whatever the heck it was. Manny Machado has that huge contract. So the left side of the infield for the San Diego Padres is stacked. Not to mention they have a really, really good pitching staff too. So I think, like anything, it depends on health, but top to bottom, I think the Padres can certainly make a run in the National League West. Do I think they're going to beat the Dodgers? I don't, only because I think the Dodgers just got better than they were last year. I mean, you have the addition of Trevor Bauer, so he's obviously another Cy Young Award winner. So technically, in the Dodgers starting staff and bullpen staff, if you take their pitching staff as a whole, they have 3 Cy Young Award winners. They have Clayton Kershaw, they have David Price, and they have Trevor Bauer. Now, David Price is a Cy Young Award winner, and he's going to start the season in the pen. That just tells you the depth that the Dodgers have. So I think that's going to be a fun competition in the NL West. As far as the AL is concerned, I really like the White Sox. I think they have some definite potential. It does stink that Eloy Jimenez is now out 5 to 6 months with that torn tendon in his pectoral area. That stinks for them. I think the Twins have an opportunity there. Obviously, the Yankees are the team to beat, right? And until somebody beats them, it's a very winnable division in terms of the AL East for the New York Yankees. And they've just gotten better. I think the question mark there is what Gary Sanchez are you going to get? We know the guy can hit, but is he going to hit this year? If their pitching staff can stay healthy, I don't know who in the AL East is going to beat the Yankees. You never know. It all depends on health. I think the Chicago Cubs are in a massive rebuild. The Tampa Bay Rays are interesting, but they also lost Blake Snell to the Padres. So he gets a chance at least, a handful of times to get back at the Dodgers for the World Series. I'm sure he would like to do that again. It's going to be a fun year. I'm just so thankful we have baseball to be on the eve of opening day when it's going to hopefully be a 162 game season. We've come a long way from where we were a year ago.
Talk about fans, because fans will be allowed into the ballpark. How neat's that going to be?
I can't wait. That's the one thing that really was lacking last year. I mean, we are our fans, and the team is so driven by the energy and the excitement of the fans. And, the fact that they weren't there was noticeable. And, the Dodgers win the World Series for the first time in 32 years. The Los Angeles Lakers win the championship for the first time in 10 or whatever it was. And, for them to both do it in the same year and not be able to celebrate with the city was tragic, but everybody understands that the most important thing is everyone's safety and everyone's health, but the fans were sorely missed. And I know it's going to be at a minimal capacity, but hopefully as people continue to get vaccinated and we make some progress with that, hopefully the percentage of fans will be able to increase as the season goes on. And I'm hopeful. I'm not saying this based on any sort of inside knowledge or scientific fact, but I'm hopeful by the All-Star break, we can be at full capacity. That would be great.
Awesome stuff. A couple other things I want to touch with you. I know we're kind of tight on time, but I know you said 30, but I'm sure I can go a little past 30.
You're fine. Take your time. You're
Okay.
good.
Two things I want to touch on this. The first thing is we're going to do something fun. It's called Farrell's 5. I got 5, not slow pitch questions. Heat. I'm bringing heat.
Okay. High heat.
I'm warming up the arm or the voice, but I'm warming up the arm here. First question is, what's your favorite color and why?
I could say something like funny and stupid, like green, because it's the color of money. No, I'm going to say I've always been a fan of blue, honestly. Blue is probably my favorite color just because, I don't know, just because I think it's pretty. I don't have a really great answer for that. My dream car that I wanted it took me 23 years to get it, but I finally bought it. That was blue. I don't know. I just like it. I just like blue.
Favorite baseball movie?
Oof. A League of Their Own for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And probably Field of Dreams.
Good. I'm gonna tell you mine. I got a few,
Okay.
but probably my favorite is Bull Durham. I love Bull Durham.
That's a good one.
And then
you know what? We watched the other day, and I'm embarrassed to say that it took me a billion years to watch it, but my fiance's kids had never seen it either. But we watched The Sandlot.
Yes.
Phenomenal.
That's
phenomenal. Like I'm embarrassed that it took me this long to see it, but highly recommend.
And The Natural and For the Love of the Game.
Sure. All of those. I mean, you can't go wrong.
Yeah, but the Bad News Bears, but I like the older Bad News Bears movie, not the one with Billy Bob Thornton.
It's because we're old, so that makes
we're
sense.
old. That's what it
why
is.
we like the original. Yes.
This deal. Okay, Alanna Rizzo is going to have coffee and wine at a dinner party she's hosting.
Oh.
You could invite 5 sports figures, past, present. Who would they be?
Oh man, Jackie Robinson, number one.
Mm-hmm.
You have to invite Babe Ruth, don't you?
Yeah.
I would think you'd have to. And it doesn't have to be baseball, right? It can be any sport.
It could be anything. It could be any sports figure. It could be a coach. It could be a player. It could be a broadcaster.
John Elway. Has to be John Elway. Born and raised Broncos fans. But I would have to ask him why it took him, like, did you sign quarterbacks that you didn't want to be that good just so you could have all of the records? Apart from Peyton Manning, what are you doing? So those are questions that I would have to ask. Number 7, Hall of Famer. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame on my birthday when I was still in Wichita Falls, Texas. I remember watching that Hall of Fame induction ceremony in the sports office there at KAUZ. Okay, so that's 3. So
that's why you were crying so hard that day.
So we have Jackie Robinson, the Babe, John Elway. My goodness.
Got 2.
Muhammad Ali.
I'm the greatest.
Muhammad Ali. And, this is a great question, Jermaine.
That's why I'm bringing the heat, kid. I'm bringing the heat.
And I could say this just because Serena Williams.
That's a good one. That's a good list.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I had like at least 10 or 15 invites to give because I have other people, but I'd have to say Serena.
You now, here's the thing. There's a waiting list, so if someone can't make it, you can have that list.
All right. If I have a 6th.
You can have a 6th.
If I had a 6th, then it would probably be I don't know. That's a tough question. That's a tough question.
By the way, sidebar, I love those late 80s, early 90s Colorado Buffalo football teams. I'm just throwing that out.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. I love my Buffs. I don't know if there's anybody that I'm fortunate to know a lot of them already. So like if I'm having a dinner party, I want a dinner party where I have no chance of like actually doing this with you know what I mean?
Okay, my 4th question, what's the last thing you've binge watched?
How about I have now officially watched every single episode of The Big Bang Theory. I started it in COVID and we just finished it like 3 days ago. There's 12 seasons. I've watched every single episode and now we have moved on to Ted Lasso And I'm also binge watching Entourage because, again, I'm 500 years late to the party. So we're binge watching that and Ted Lasso. And I'm waiting for Peaky Blinders to come back, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel to come back, Ozark to come back. So they're all in the queue.
There you go. And by the way, with Big Bang Theory, we air it every night on WFXR here. So after our 6:30 newscast, we have an hour of Big Bang Theory. Then after our 10 o'clock newscast, we have 30 minutes of Big Bang Theory. It's like we air all the Chuck Lorre shows. We have 2.5 Men, Two Broke Girls. All the same.
Well, I tell you, Big Bang is the writing is brilliant, and Jim Parsons is an absolute brilliant actor. He's Sheldon, and that show is nothing without Sheldon. So
that's true. Yeah, he is funny though. It brings out your inner nerd. I'll give you one if you want to binge watch. It's the last season of it's coming up on, but it's Tyler Perry's Have and Have Nots.
Okay.
That's a good show.
I'll put it on the list.
You watch all those. Okay, my final question. I know you got the answer for this. All right, DL or no DL?
In terms of having one or not having one, or calling it the DL?
Okay, how about not DL? I'm sorry, DL. Hey, see, I was thinking DH, designated hitter.
Oh, okay.
Are you in favor of having a designated hitter? Basically, the AL rules, or do you want the National League where the pitcher's bat?
I do not want the designated hitter in the National League. I think that there is so much more strategy in the National League / senior circuit than there is in the American League. American League to me is a lot more, bash ball with the home runs. There's so much more strategy, and in my opinion, more difficult to be a manager in the National League than there is in the American League, because you do have to think about when you're going to double switch, when you're going to take out your pitcher, when you're going to bring in a position player. I'm a little bit of a baseball purist, not 100% of a baseball purist, because there are things that I would change about the game. But no, I was fine with it this year, like with, starting a runner on second base in extra innings, which they're going to do again anyway. I don't know. I'm okay with different rules in different leagues.
It's funny. I've rooted for years for teams on both sides, but I feel it's weird to have one league with one set of rules, and it'd be like the equivalent if in the NFL, if the AFC had the 2-point conversion and the NFC didn't have the 2-point conversion, or if the Western Conference of the NBA had a set of rules and the Eastern Conference, it's kind of like that.
I understand what you're saying, but in a football game, the field is 100 yards no matter what, right? In a basketball game, the court is the exact same size. Mm-hmm. The hoop is the same height, the court's the same size, the field goal posts in football are the exact same dimensions. They're positioned in the field in the exact same place for all 32 teams in football. In baseball, your parks are totally different. Your left field, your center field, and your right field walls are all different. All of the parks are constructed in a different way. So you pitch to the park, you hit to the park, you sign guys based on that park. Aaron Judge isn't in New York if there's not a short porch and right. So unless all of the stadiums are exactly the same, I'm okay with having a DH in just the American League.
Can I say thank you for schooling me?
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
Even though I still feel that, and I know the parks are different, and to be honest, you mentioned that not even though the fields are the same in football and in basketball, the arenas are different too, because some teams shoot better in one arena than the other. It could be the lighting. It could be, when you look at a football stadium, it might be a dome. Not some play in a dome, some don't. So even in that aspect, it is a little different. But
you're right. Yeah, you're right. No, that's a fair point. And some guys
did I get you back on that? Did I get you back?
Really? Let's be honest. You're not going to get me back. But think about with baseball too. You're right though. Like the batter's eye. Some guys love hitting in Milwaukee because that batter's eye in what is now American Family Field, used to be Miller Park, is just. Some guys really see the ball there. Same thing with Arizona at Chase Field. Some guys really see the ball there. Like Nomar Garcia-Parra used to hate hitting in Milwaukee. He hated it. But like Adrian Gonzalez used to love hitting in Chase Field because of the batter's eye. So I can see your point, but I guess I just like the National League rules and the strategy that goes behind it.
Right. And to be honest, I even though I'm an American League fan and a National League fan, I love the National League teams. I still feel that either you have it or you don't. I mean, if you have the DH, fine. If you don't, that's fine. But let's be, I guess, consistent all around the board. But anyway, you won, so I bow down. There you go. I want to talk about something that's real near and dear to your heart. The Guidry's Guardian Foundation. You started that back in 2018, yeah, 1990. Talk about how that came about and just the importance of it, because I want to shine the spotlight. I want to let everybody know about that.
No, I appreciate the time to talk about it. Yeah, Guidry's Guardian Foundation is definitely my passion project. It is a nonprofit dog rescue named after my dog Guidry, who I adopted from the Humane Society of Boulder Valley in 2009. And Guidry, just having him opened my eyes to the absolute need for adoption and rescue. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dogs and cats are unnecessarily euthanized on a yearly basis across our country just because of overcrowded shelters and not enough resources. And I'm very adamant about rescue and adoption and not buying from breeders, not buying from backyard breeders, not patronizing pet stores, because most of those pets come from puppy mills where dogs are just overbred and then cast away when they're no longer profitable. I've seen a lot of horror stories with puppy mills and backyard breeders, and dogs that are sick coming from breeders. I'm not saying that all breeders are not reputable, but it is my preference that people adopt. And like Bob Barker used to say, help control the pet population and have your dogs spayed or neutered, because there's just a massive, massive overpopulation of animals in our country. And especially in large cities. I just came from Los Angeles. I'm now close to Boston, Chicago, Dallas, New York, all these huge cities have a huge problem with it. So what my foundation does, it's 100% donor based. So it's all based on the kindness of the hearts of our community. Is we get dogs off of the streets and out of high kill shelters, and we get them the medical coverage that they need. So get them their vet exams, their vaccinations, their wellness checks, and then we network them to get them in forever homes. So it's, the goal is off the streets, out of the shelter, into a family. So it's named after my dog Guidry, who I adopted, like I said, in 2009, and hopefully his legacy continues.
Was Guidry named after Ron Guidry?
He was, yeah. I named him. My family, my dad's side of the family is New Yorkers, and they were Yankees fans, and we already had a Jeter in the family. So I wanted Guidry, and I always joke that he was left pod, because Ron Guidry, of course, is a lefty. And I always joke that Guidry was a southpaw.
That's awesome stuff. So if anybody want to know about it, how can they take part of it? I know that, just give the website and all the information.
Yeah, I appreciate that. The easiest way to help us is to donate. I mean, $1 goes a long way. There's no donation that's too big or too small. You can go to guidrysguardian.org, which is GUIDRYS, guardian.org. And we're on all of the social media platforms as well under Guidry's Guardian.
That's awesome stuff. Now, another thing too, all right, Alanna Rizzo, she is with MLB Network, rocking and rolling. I mean, going to be on that High Heat show with Christopher Russo, which, by the way, I listen to his show on Sirius. Boy, when he gets after it, he gets after it.
Yeah, he's a guy that's done this for a really long time and has a lot of success in this industry, and is incredibly opinionated about a lot of things, but has a lot of knowledge and a lot of, certainly a lot of experience in the sport. And, I'm thankful that he was so welcoming to have me as his contributor. It's his show. I want to be very clear. It's still High Heat with Christopher Russo. I'm a contributor now on a daily basis, but, I joke it's a couple of Italians. It's Rizzo, it's Russo, or it's Russo and it's Rizzo. And, the Rizzo report is coming back. It'll be different than it was on IT, Intentional Talk. But yeah, he's awesome, and he definitely has a persona on the air, but I can tell you he's one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. And it's going to be interesting to see how we kind of mesh together. It's going to, like anything, it's going to take some time, but certainly looking forward to it.
Now, another thing too is, and I want to say, it's Mike Rizzo. He played for the Cubs, right? Did I get it right?
Well, Mike Rizzo is he's the GM of the Nats. Anthony Rizzo plays for the Cubs.
That's all right. But so do people think you're related to him?
They've asked a lot of things. They've asked if we're married. I'm like, I could literally be his mother. But here's a funny fact about Anthony Rizzo. So my dad, my grandfather, who has since passed, my grandfather, my father, my brother, and my nephew are all named Anthony Rizzo. So technically, I am related to Anthony Rizzo, but not the Anthony Rizzo that people are thinking of, not the Anthony Rizzo of the Cubs. But here's another funny fact. My birthday is August 8th. Anthony Rizzo of the Cubs, his birthday is also August 8th. Let's just say he's much younger than me and has a much bigger bank account. He's a very, very nice young man. He's a kid to me. I mean, everyone's a kid to me. But we are not officially related, but it is funny that I have relatives with the same name as him, and he and I share the same birthday.
How did y'all or do y'all interact? I'm sure that whenever like the Dodgers played the Cubs, I'm sure y'all interact.
Yeah,
you play the Nationals or whatever.
Yeah, well, I mean, Mike Rizzo with the Nats, I always joke, that we're related. Obviously we're not, but Anthony and I, we've talked to each other a couple times. Obviously he plays first base, and in Chicago, the Cubs dugout is on the third base side and the visiting dugout is on the first base side. So he's a first baseman and I sit in the camera well next to the Dodgers dugout. So I was right behind him. So we could interact that way. We've taken a couple of pictures together. When the Broncos were playing the Panthers in the Super Bowl a few years back, he didn't have a rooting interest. So he's like, well, my sister's a Broncos fan, so I guess I'll go for the Broncos, and so we have fun like that, but we are not related.
And a couple of quick things finally. And by the way, Alanna Rizzo with the MLB Network, High Heat Show, and any other stuff out there. Who was someone that you looked up to in the broadcasting world? Like, who was someone you wanted to, I wouldn't say emulate, but who was some people that you looked up to when you kind of got rocking and rolling?
I just think, coming up, I wasn't born wanting to do this. I wasn't a little girl practicing with a microphone and talking to myself in the mirror, doing play-by-play or anything like that. I think I look up to people now more than I did then, just because I know how hard it is in this industry. And there's so many people that do such an amazing job. I think Mike Tirico is incredible. I think, Michelle Tafoya is flawless. Susie Colbert does an amazing job. Obviously, Bob Costas, what he's done in his career speaks for himself. I've been able to work alongside two Hall of Famers, and Vin Scully and Jaime Jarrín, this Spanish voice of the Dodgers. Literally, both of those men are in Cooperstown, and they were my colleagues. There's a lot of women in this industry that I have an unbelievable amount of respect for. Women that are also sideline reporters or, in the industry that, we have a bit of a sorority together and kind of just talk about a bunch of different things. So there's a lot of women that are doing amazing things, but I look up to a lot of men that do it flawlessly as well. There's so many people that have made an impact in my career, just kind of watching them. And I've been fortunate it's hard enough to get in this industry. It's even harder to stay. So I've been very fortunate to have the career I've had.
I tell you one thing, you are a rock star kid, and I'm so proud to know you. Consider you a colleague, a compadre, or anything how you want to say it. Got to ask you this. What was it like to work with Vin Scully? Because, the funny thing is, when you listen to his broadcast, and you were closer than all of us, he will tell a story, and then he will call the action. Like, he'll tell a story, it'll go through 2 or 3, or maybe an inning, and he'll say ball 1 and back to the story, strike, back to the story. How neat was it to just be around him? Because I remember growing up, people probably don't remember this. He called the catch game. He called the San Francisco-Dallas catch game with Dwight Clark. And obviously we know the history, why he left and all that. But just, Dick Enberg, those guys, I didn't realize Dick Enberg or Dick Stockton were baseball guys. You kind of saw them with basketball and football. But with Vin Scully, that had to be like getting a class every day.
Oh, yeah. And Dick Enberg was a big tennis guy, too. And I actually worked with Dick when he was with the Padres, towards the end of his career. I was with the Dodgers and he was with the Padres. So to have him come over and, talk to our managers was a joy, too. Vin Scully is as nice of a human being and as nice of a man as you think he is. And he's the one person that he will be the only man that ever has that solo booth. Like, you can't compliment Vinny. Nobody else can live up to him and be in that booth with him. And, he not only would go through the Dodgers game and tell an amazing story. He would be calling the Dodgers game and another game in the NL West at the same time and seamlessly be telling a story. And the man's memory is ridiculous. I remember when they unveiled the Jackie Robinson statue at Dodger Stadium, and they had Rachel Robinson there and Sharon Robinson there and David Robinson there, Jackie's son, who came in from Africa, who actually lives in Africa. And he came in from Africa for this unveiling. And Vin was there telling the most amazing story about one time that Jackie Robinson and he were ice skating, and they had like this competition on ice skates. And I don't even remember what I did last week. And Vin's recollection of so many different things and the box scores of events and all that he remembers and everything that he has seen, starting with the team when they were in Brooklyn and coming to LA in 58 and, you know, opening the stadium, I think in 62 or whatever it was. Just really, really an impressive human being and just the kindest man you'll ever meet. And I'm fortunate to have been able to be his colleague for 2 years.
Well, I'm fortunate to say I know you. So, I mean, Alanna Rizzo, Major League Baseball Network, MLB. What did it say? I'm coming home.
Yeah, kind of came full circle. I'm back.
Yeah, I'm so proud of you, kid. And I thank you for giving me time on the WFXR Sports Sitdown, WFXRTV.com, and enjoy another cup of coffee. I know you probably got some percolating at the crib.
Thank you. I will. And it's always a pleasure to reconnect with you. And, anything for you. It's my pleasure.